there are a couple of reasons why we're talking about Star Wars prequels. First, this week marked 2 anniversaries: the 16th of Phantom Menace and the 10th anniversary of the release of Revenge of the Sith. The second reason is I had a little, just an exchange with somebody on Twitter last week. Forgive me for not remembering your name, but it was a younger viewer, somebody who grew up with the prequels, and he was saying, I believe it was a he. Forgive me if I get that wrong, but that look, this was the Star Wars I grew up with. It's not the one you grew up with, and for me, they mean a lot, and to me, they were good, because that was what connected me to Star Wars. You have the original trilogy, I have this, and it was more beyond just that, and I was kind of saying, well, you're kind of making an argument for, nostalgia over quality, but it did get me thinking again, and I'm really tired of having to defend why I don't like the prequels, and I feel like we've been having this conversation for 15 years. But let's go ahead and talk about
let's get at it.
which
Star
Star Wars prequel character. How are we phrasing this again? Which Star Wars prequel character was the best and worst, or which?
Can we universally? It's so easy to go after Jar Jar, right?
Yeah,
and be like, I already hate Jar Jar. He's the worst. But who do you like? We're turning it on a positive note.
We're trying.
So which
Some more
prequels
than
character
others,
is your favorite?
I mean, I think here the obvious choice is Darth Maul. I think from the very first time you saw that trailer and you saw the first look at him, and who's my favorite character was the music. I loved the music, all that
That's
chorus.
Cheating.
It is cheating. So I'm still gonna say Darth Maul, but he was only in the one movie, and I feel like that was a mistake, because you had, first of all, who among us didn't think he was the Phantom Menace? When you saw that trailer. But beyond that, you see that trailer and you're like, this is Darth Vader for the new trilogy, and I can get behind that. And it
looked cool.
It was disappointing that
Lightsaber.
he, even within that movie, they were setting him up as the apprentice.
I hope that
grow.
doesn't happen with Kylo Ren and Force Awakens. We don't have to go down that.
Yeah, let's not go down that path. But I would say he wasn't in either of the 2 sequels, and he really didn't do all that much in there. But his presence was really, really felt in that first film, and even sort of like your anticipation of it. All those things that you did as a kid to prepare your body for Boba Fett, you did with, my body is ready.
Yeah.
Oh,
Boba Fett. Anyway, Boba Fett. Everybody, maybe that was not the best way to go into that. I'm just saying. But Darth Maul, so awesome.
Better.
Darth Maul, the promise of him was awesome.
Yes.
The sequence that he was in, the lightsaber battle, was one of the best lightsaber battles in all of the movies, period.
Yeah.
And like I said,
such a cool look, great makeup.
Look,
everything.
saber.
Ray Park was so cool too.
The way he moved, the way he fought.
One of our writers, Max Nicholson, wrote a great piece about characters in the prequels who benefited from an extended life outside of the prequels.
Yeah, they were better served.
Yeah, so look that up. And Maul is one of them. But
I think he's probably the most.
He was my favorite, but I also think he was one of the best. And I think they made a mistake by not giving him a through line into the second and third films.
I think that the tricky part about that is that then I agree with you, because he was so underserved, and that's why he had a life elsewhere, and people really love him. But then if the story is really about Anakin, and Anakin turning to and Anakin ultimately has to be the bad guy.
Yeah, he has to be the bad apprentice.
Yeah, exactly. So that's tricky. So how do you can't, there are only 2. So what do you kill then? You can't kill the Emperor. So I don't know how you get around that and have him really have a through line in all 3 movies.
What did you think?
I liked Darth Maul a lot in that first movie, and then I can't separate my affection for Yoda, period, from wherever he is, and so I'm like, well, who's the best character? It's Yoda, obviously, period, done forever.
Yaddle.
But Yaddle.
Actually, I think Yaddle's on Max's list too.
Oh yeah. Hell Yaddle.
Hell Yaddle. but probably consistently, we talked about this earlier, in terms of being a consistent character in the movie, because Yoda didn't do much until the end.
I would say I was very, very pleased to see Yoda you know, get out his saber and do and show that he
Do
was
some
more than
damage.
just, you know, like force pushing and just a great Jedi mind.
right.
I love to see him in action. I thought that was great. I know some people totally disagree with me.
Well, I mean, and we'll get into that, but I mean, let's not undercut the power of using Yoda's mind. Let's not undercut the fact that he could move this whole building if he so desired. I mean, he's a pretty powerful guy. He doesn't really need. He's full of action. He is always doing stuff. He is
Yoda, comma, man of action.
Yoda, man of action. Even when he's still, he's a man of action.
He's not a
That's
man.
Yoda.
He's a whatever. I forget what they're called. His species.
Did they give a species name?
He's still a man. Like he's still
He's
a male.
male.
Right. So he's a man of action.
Yeah, we're not gonna
I want to talk about Yoda's bits.
real man of action. Yoda.
We'll talk about Yoda's bits later. That'll be another breakout.
Expand they do.
Grow or not sure.
Did you say grow or not sure? It's all breaking down now, people.
It is just like society. We're all
But,
just.
I love Yoda so much. But
Maybe you
not,
love him a
not,
little too
not in
much.
that way. I don't know. I don't love him quite like that. But Obi-Wan was probably the one that had the most consistent through line in the movie and was
Right.
like the best character throughout because he was in all three.
And it was Ewan McGregor who I thought brilliantly
Yeah.
handled
Right,
that character and was really game. I think he felt like he was just, you know, just watching behind the scenes stuff with him. He just was really excited about being a Jedi and being part of this world. Part
Yeah.
of this
The
world.
world.
Anyway, he was like so excited to just be participating in it.
Mashing up all our Disney.
And even his comments, like after the movies, have all been kind of like, "Yeah, I'd return to that world."
Yeah, he
I'd love
loves
to."
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even though
he
he's
did.
also been incredibly candid too about
Yeah.
what didn't work.
But I
so.
think that's fine. I mean, he's
Yeah.
an artist, and you want everything to like work to his fullest potential. I think that's great, you know. But at the same time, had a lot of enthusiasm, and I think he did a really admirable job with what he was given. For
yeah. So I'm cheating too because I'm saying those two. You?
sure.
I'll be honest, and this is going to sound non-committal. I'm going to say none of them. Darth Maul's a cool character, but he's a one movie character that ultimately didn't affect the course of that trilogy. He's cool. The fact that we're still talking about him all these years later, I mean, it's kind of like Boba Fett,
Boba-
but it's like ultimately
The Boba Fett effect.
that trilogy could have existed without Darth Maul. They could have killed Qui-Gon some other way. I kind of liked Liam Neeson being in there, but I thought he was kind of a wet blanket. And frankly, none of the characters, even the original ones that came back, including the droids, to me, everything just fell flat. Like none of those characters ultimately to me felt well served, especially Anakin, which should have been, you know, he's a tragic character. And it should have really impacted you far more than it did.
I was actually really looking forward to Samuel Jackson being Mace Windu in the
Yeah.
series, and I felt like he was like criminally underused. I thought he would be like this like wise samurai master or like Zen sort
He
of
just
force
sat on
in
the
the
school
movie.
council the entire time or whatever.
But yeah, and I was
No.
hoping he was going to get that one moment that like really defined that character, or not one moment, but like.
Well, they did have
series of-
it's still that arena battle that owes a lot to the original, like John Carter stories.
Yeah.
That was probably his best moment because they certainly didn't give him a great
But
I think
death.
there's like I feel like those movies are such an interesting and like it throws the reality that there's a real alchemy to movie making, and it throws that into sharp relief because there's something just magical about to me about those first three films.
Yeah.
That same sense, and you could argue that there are cheesy moments in all of those
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
For sure.
There are.
And you
And
could,
not all of the original trilogy works
Right.
100% of the time.
but there's some kind of like alchemy that just happens, and you can speak to a lot of the different people that were a part of it creatively in terms of as directors and writers and things like that. And frankly, Harrison Ford brought a ton to Han Solo that was not on the page. That I think then brought the other people around him to life as well.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because I agree with you, which I do feel much more of an attachment to those, and I do think that there's more life to them and those characters in that story. But it's also inherently it's a hero's journey,
Yeah.
and the hero's journey is much more easily made as a family film. You know what I mean? Than the tale of a man falling to his demons, the tale of a man defeating his demons. and overcoming them, as we all want to be able to do in our lives, is way more uplifting and way more lends itself to like the kind of tone that Lucas was setting in terms of being a family film, than if you're going to tell the story of a man falling to his demons, it has to be a lot darker, and it wasn't, you know, because it was appealing to kids.
It was just it was a very, very hard thing, I think, to go in that direction, you know, go back to prequels, unless you made it a way earlier prequel. Like, he wanted to tell the story of how Darth Vader became Darth Vader, and I think, like, the execution of it wasn't always there for sure.
But I still feel like that's just not a good idea.
Yeah, I feel like there is something to be said for Darth Vader just coming into the world and existing from that place, like, and then you know that story of him until his end, and then there's that redemption arc. You don't have to necessarily see, you
what
know,
got him there, because just the
Muppet Babies version of him.
No, because you get it, right? Like, the minute he takes off that mask and it's that real vulnerable and it's this totally broken, destroyed human shell that's still clinging to some sense of humanity, you get what happened to him.
Yeah.
It's really what could happen to anybody. They got overcome by greed, ambition, bitterness, anger, all of the bad dark side emotions, right? That's what happened to him.
Yeah.
Hate leads to suffering.
Like, hate leads to suffering. I get it.
Suffering leads to the dark.
Suffering leads to the dark.
Well, I mean, we'll talk more about sort of in future episodes about the benefits and the pros and cons of prequels, because I think there's a Godfather saga conversation we had there. So we'll save that for another time.
But we were trying to be positive here.
We are trying to be. So let us know who you think who's your favorite Star Wars prequels character. Let us know in the comments below.